Hello, I'm Maya. And this is the story of how my mother-in-law looked me in the face and laughed. Not just at me, but at my business idea, calling it a useless pet AI gadget that no one would ever want. She didn't believe someone like me, a former waitress with no tech background, could build something revolutionary. But what hurt more wasn't her dismissal. It was knowing she wanted me to fail, just so she could tell her son, "I told you so." But then the world changed, and everything she built on mockery crumbled into dust while I built an empire worth billions. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I hadn't spoken to my mother-in-law, Patricia Blackwood, in 6 months. Not since the disastrous Thanksgiving dinner, where she'd spent the entire evening listing all the reasons why my husband Marcus should have married someone more suitable. Someone with a proper education, she'd said. Someone from a good family. Someone who understood what it meant to build a real business, not chase silly dreams. Patricia owned 3 successful interior design showrooms across Northern California, and she never let anyone forget it. She'd built her empire from scratch after her divorce, transforming a small home staging business into a multi-million-dollar operation. Her Marin County estate overlooked the San Francisco Bay, and every piece of furniture inside cost more than most people's cars. She wore her success like armor, sharp and unyielding. When Marcus called me on that Tuesday morning in March, his voice carried the familiar tension that always appeared when his mother was involved. "Maya, she wants to see what you've been working on. She says she's ready to listen." I almost laughed. Patricia Blackwood? Ready to listen? The same woman who'd interrupted my last presentation about AI companions for elderly pet owners by asking if I'd considered getting a real job instead. The same woman who'd told Marcus at our wedding reception that marrying me was the biggest mistake of his life, loud enough for 3 tables to hear. But Marcus sounded hopeful, and I'd learned that hope was a dangerous thing in his family. It meant someone was about to be disappointed, and it was rarely Patricia. She specifically asked about the pet AI project, he continued. She said she wants to understand what you're building before she makes any final judgments. Final judgments. As if she hadn't already sentenced me to failure the moment we met. I looked around my cramped home office, formerly our spare bedroom, where I'd been coding for 18 months straight. 3 monitors surrounded my desk, displaying lines of code that would soon become the most advanced artificial pet companion the world had ever seen. Scattered notebooks contained sketches of holographic cats that could learn their owners' routines, AI dogs that provided emotional support through advanced behavioral modeling, and virtual birds that could sing personalized songs based on their humans' mood patterns. The technology was revolutionary. I'd developed a proprietary neural network that could create emotionally intelligent virtual pets, each one unique and capable of forming genuine bonds with their owners. These weren't simple animations or basic chatbots. They were sophisticated AI entities that could provide companionship, emotional support, and even medical monitoring for elderly or disabled individuals who couldn't care for traditional pets. But explaining complex artificial intelligence to someone who still used a flip phone seemed impossible. "Fine," I told Marcus, "but this time I'm presenting on my terms. No interruptions, no dismissive comments, and definitely no suggestions that I should be doing something more practical with my time." The meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon at Patricia's estate. I spent the entire week preparing a presentation that could break down quantum computing algorithms into language a 5-year-old could understand. I created visual demonstrations, printed financial projections, and even prepared a live demo of my prototype. Marcus picked me up at noon, wearing the navy blazer his mother had bought him for Christmas. He always dressed like he was attending a board meeting when we visited her, as if the right clothes could somehow make our marriage more acceptable in her eyes. "Remember," he said as we drove through the winding roads of Marin County, "she's actually trying this time. She asked me to set this up because she wants to support your work." I nodded, but my stomach churned with familiar anxiety. Patricia Blackwood didn't support anything unless it directly benefited her or reflected well on her family's reputation. The fact that she was willing to listen meant she'd found a new angle for attack. We pulled through her wrought iron gates at exactly 2 o'clock. Patricia's estate sprawled across 3 acres of perfectly manicured gardens, with a Mediterranean-style mansion that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. The circular driveway was paved with imported Italian stones, and a fountain, featuring dancing dolphins, sat in the center like a monument to excess. Patricia greeted us at the front door, wearing a cream-colored blazer and pearls that probably cost more than my yearly rent. Her silver hair was styled in the same elegant bob she'd worn for the past decade, and her smile was as sharp as her criticism. "Maya, darling," she said, air-kissing both my cheeks like we were old friends instead of reluctant family members. "I'm so excited to finally understand what you've been working on all this time." The living room was exactly as I remembered it, cold, pristine, and designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the bay, while museum-quality art adorned the walls. Patricia gestured toward the white leather sectional, and I noticed she'd positioned herself directly across from where I would sit, like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Would you like some tea?" she asked, already pouring from an antique silver service. "I had my housekeeper prepare those little cucumber sandwiches you liked last time." I'd never liked cucumber sandwiches, but correcting Patricia Blackwood was like trying to redirect a hurricane. I accepted the delicate china cup and arranged my presentation materials on the glass coffee table between us. "So," Patricia began, settling back into her chair with predatory grace, "Marcus tells me you've been developing some sort of pet technology?" The way she said pet technology made it sound like I'd been teaching goldfish to perform tricks. But I'd prepared for this tone, this dismissal disguised as polite interest. "I've created an AI companion system that revolutionizes how people interact with virtual pets," I began, opening my laptop to display the first slide. "The technology combines advanced machine learning, emotional recognition algorithms, and holographic projection to create virtual pets that are indistinguishable from real animals in terms of emotional bonding and behavioral complexity." Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly, but her expression remained neutral. "Virtual pets," she repeated slowly, "like those Tamagotchi things from the 90s. "Not exactly," I continued, clicking to a demonstration video. "These AI companions can recognize facial expressions, respond to voice patterns, learn individual preferences, and even provide health monitoring for elderly users. They're designed for people who want the emotional benefits of pet ownership without the physical limitations or care requirements." On screen, my prototype holographic golden retriever responded to voice commands, performed complex behavioral sequences, and even seemed to show genuine affection toward its human companion. The AI could detect when its owner was sad and provide comfort, celebrate when they were happy, and maintain consistent personality traits that made each virtual pet truly unique. Patricia watched the demonstration with the same expression she might use while observing a mildly interesting insect. When the video ended, she set down her teacup with a delicate clink. "It's very clever," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "But I have to ask, Maya, who exactly would buy this?" The question hit like a slap. I'd spent months researching market demographics, conducting user studies, and analyzing industry trends. I knew exactly who would buy this technology, and the market was massive. Senior citizens who can't care for traditional pets due to mobility issues, I explained, pulling up my market research. Individuals with severe allergies who've been denied pet ownership their entire lives. Children in apartments or homes where pets aren't allowed. People dealing with depression or anxiety who need consistent emotional support. The potential user base includes millions of people across multiple demographics. Patricia nodded slowly, as if she were seriously considering my words. Then she leaned forward, and I saw the predatory gleam in her eyes that meant she was moving. In for the kill. "But Maya, sweetie," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Don't you think people would rather have real pets? I mean, what you're describing sounds very artificial, very cold. When people want a companion, they want something warm and alive, not some computer projection." I felt my jaw tighten, but I forced myself to remain calm. The emotional response to virtual companions can be just as strong as traditional pet bonds, I replied. Studies have shown that people can form genuine attachments to AI entities, especially when those entities are designed with advanced behavioral modeling. Studies, Patricia repeated, waving her hand dismissively. But studies aren't the same as real-world application, are they? I've been in business for 25 years, and I know what sells. People want authenticity. They want real experiences, not digital substitutes. Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside me, but he remained silent. This was my battle to fight. "The market research disagrees," I said, pulling up projected revenue figures. "The virtual companion industry is projected to reach $800 billion by 2030. Early investors are already showing significant interest, and beta testing has produced overwhelmingly positive feedback." Patricia glanced at the numbers with the same enthusiasm she might show for a grocery list. $800 billion, she mused. "That's a very large number, Maya. But projections aren't profits, are they? Anyone can make impressive charts and graphs. The question is whether real people with real money will actually buy what you're selling." The condescension in her voice was becoming harder to ignore. I'd presented detailed market analysis, demonstrated advanced technology, and provided concrete evidence of commercial viability. But Patricia had already made up her mind before I'd walked through her door. "I understand your skepticism," I said carefully, "but the technology speaks for itself. The beta users have reported significant emotional benefits, improved mental health outcomes, and genuine attachment to their AI companions. This isn't just a gadget or a toy. It's a legitimate solution to real problems affecting millions of people." Patricia smiled, and something cold settled in my chest. It wasn't a kind smile or even a polite one. It was the smile of someone who was about to deliver a finishing blow. "Maya, darling," she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand like I was a confused child. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, I really do. But let's be realistic here. You're talking about selling imaginary pets to lonely people. She paused as if searching for the right words. "It's rather sad, don't you think?" The room fell silent except for the distant sound of waves against the shore far below. Marcus stared at his hands, and I realized he wasn't going to defend me or my work. He was going to sit there and let his mother dismantle everything I'd built with her carefully chosen words. "Furthermore," Patricia continued, warming to her subject, "I have to question the ethics of this whole enterprise. You're essentially taking advantage of people's loneliness and emotional vulnerability. Instead of encouraging them to form real relationships or get actual pets, you're selling them artificial substitutes. It seems rather predatory." The accusation hit harder than any insult about my background or education. She was attacking not just my business model, but my character, suggesting that I was some sort of con artist preying on the elderly and emotionally damaged. "That's not what this technology does," I said, my voice tighter than I intended. "AI companions supplement human relationships. They don't replace them. The goal is to provide emotional support and companionship for people who genuinely can't access traditional alternatives. It's about inclusion and accessibility, not exploitation." Patricia leaned back in her chair, her expression softening into something that might have looked like sympathy to someone who didn't know her better. "I'm sure your intentions are good," she said with a sigh. "But good intentions don't always translate into successful businesses. And frankly, Maya, I'm concerned about how much time and energy you're investing in something that seems so unlikely to succeed." There it was. The real purpose of this meeting wasn't to understand my work or offer support, it was to convince me to abandon everything I'd built and pursue something more acceptable to Patricia Blackwood's idea of success. "The technology has already attracted interest from major investors," I said, though I hadn't mentioned the preliminary discussions I'd been having with venture capital firms. "There's genuine commercial potential here." "Interest," Patricia repeated with a slight laugh. "Maya, people express interest in all sorts of things. That doesn't mean they're going to write checks. I've seen dozens of entrepreneurs over the years who confused polite conversation with actual commitment. The business world can be very cruel to people who misread social cues." Marcus finally spoke up, though his voice was barely above a whisper. "Mom, maybe we should let Maya finish her presentation before drawing conclusions." Patricia turned to her son with raised eyebrows. "Oh, I think I've seen quite enough to understand what Maya is proposing. And as someone with actual business experience, I feel obligated to provide honest feedback rather than false encouragement." She turned back to me, and her smile became even sharper. "Marcus, your wife is trying to sell invisible pets to sad people. It's a useless gadget wrapped in psychological manipulation. No one with any sense would invest in something so frivolous." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire, acrid and impossible to ignore. Patricia had just reduced months of advanced research, innovative technology, and genuine market need into a single dismissive sentence. She'd made my life's work sound like a carnival scam. I closed my laptop slowly, my hands surprisingly steady despite the rage building in my chest. "I think we're done here," I said quietly. "Oh, Maya," Patricia said with exaggerated concern. "I hope I haven't hurt your feelings. I'm just trying to help you see reality before you waste any more time on this project. Sometimes we need honest friends to tell us hard truths." Friends. As if Patricia Blackwood had ever been anything approaching a friend to me. I gathered my materials and stood up, Marcus scrambling to follow. "Thank you for your time, Patricia. I'll keep your feedback in mind." "I hope you will," she replied, walking us to the door. "And Maya, when you're ready to discuss more practical career options, I'd be happy to introduce you to some people in my network. There are always opportunities for bright young women who are willing to be realistic about their limitations." The drive home was silent except for the sound of tires on asphalt and my heart pounding in my ears. Marcus kept glancing at me nervously, but I stared straight ahead, watching the road disappear beneath our car like the months of work I'd just watched Patricia dismiss. "She means well," Marcus finally said as we pulled into our driveway. "She's just protective of family resources. She doesn't want to see us fail." I turned to look at him, really look at him, and saw something that made my chest tighten with a different kind of pain. He believed her. Maybe not completely. Maybe not consciously, but some part of Marcus Blackwood thought his mother might be right about my useless pet AI gadget. "I'm going to prove her wrong," I said quietly. Marcus nodded, but his smile was uncertain. "I know you will, Maya. I believe in you." But as I walked into our house and headed straight for my office, I realized that Marcus's belief wasn't enough anymore. I needed the world to see what Patricia Blackwood refused to acknowledge. I needed to build something so successful, so undeniably valuable, that her laughter would echo back to haunt her. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began typing an email to Dr. Sarah Chen at Berkeley's AI Research Lab. We'd been discussing potential collaboration for months, but I'd been hesitant to commit to a formal partnership. Tonight, that hesitation disappeared. If Patricia wanted to see my pet AI technology succeed or fail in the real world, then the real world was exactly where I would take it. But first, I was going to document every word she'd said, every dismissive gesture, every condescending smile. Because when the time came to celebrate my success, I wanted to remember exactly how small she'd tried to make me feel. The revolution was about to begin, and Patricia Blackwood had just provided all the motivation I needed to change everything. The rejection from Patricia stung for exactly 24 hours. Then it transformed into something far more dangerous. Pure determination. I'd spent years letting other people's opinions shape my decisions, but something fundamental shifted that night. Patricia Blackwood had just made the biggest mistake of her privileged life. Dr. Sarah Chen responded to my email within 6 hours, which surprised me until I realized she'd been waiting for me to make the first move. We'd met at a Stanford AI conference the previous year, where she'd approached me after my presentation on emotional modeling and virtual companions. Sarah led Berkeley's most advanced artificial intelligence research division, and she'd been quietly following my work through academic papers and industry publications. "Maya," she said when I called her the next morning, "I've been hoping you'd reach out. Your emotional recognition algorithms are exactly what we need for our next-generation companion AI project. When can you come to Berkeley?" The drive across. The Bay Bridge felt like crossing into a different universe. Berkeley's campus hummed with intellectual energy that made my cramped home office seem almost quaint by comparison. Sarah's lab occupied an entire floor of the computer science building, filled with quantum processors, holographic projection equipment, and prototype robots that moved with unsettling human-like grace. "Show me what you've built," Sarah said, without preamble, leading me to a demonstration room equipped with advanced projection systems. I connected my laptop to their network and launched my latest prototype. The holographic golden retriever materialized in the center of the room, its tail wagging with perfect canine enthusiasm. But this wasn't just visual trickery. The AI immediately began analyzing our biometric data through sensors built into the room, adjusting its behavior to match our emotional states. "Command it to perform complex behavioral sequences," Sarah instructed, pulling up diagnostic displays that showed the AI's decision-making processes in real time. For the next 2 hours, I demonstrated capabilities that I'd never shown anyone, not even Marcus. The virtual pet could recognize micro-expressions that indicated depression, anxiety, or loneliness. It could adapt its personality to provide precisely the type of companionship each user needed. Most importantly, it could learn and evolve, becoming more emotionally intelligent over time. Sarah watched the data streams with growing excitement. "Maya, this isn't just advanced AI. This is therapeutic technology disguised as entertainment. Do you understand what you've created?" I was beginning to. The dismissive comments from Patricia had forced me to examine my work from new angles, and I was discovering applications I'd never considered. This technology could revolutionize mental health treatment, elderly care, and emotional support systems worldwide. "I want to propose a partnership," Sarah continued, pulling up Berkeley's research grant database. "We have $12 million in federal funding for AI companion research, plus connections to venture capital firms that specialize in breakthrough technologies. But more importantly, we have the infrastructure to scale your prototype into a commercial product." The number hit me like electricity. $12 million. Patricia had dismissed my work as a useless gadget, but one of the nation's leading AI researchers was offering to invest serious money in bringing it to market. "What would you need from me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Full partnership in the research and development phase, exclusive licensing for the emotional modeling algorithms, and collaboration on the next iteration of the technology. In return, Berkeley provides funding, laboratory resources, and connections." to industry partners who can manufacture and distribute the final product. I thought about Patricia's condescending smile, her certainty that no one with sense would invest in virtual pets for sad people. How quickly can we move forward? Immediately, Sarah replied. I've already spoken with our technology transfer office. They're prepared to fast-track the partnership agreement if you're ready to commit. That afternoon, I signed documents that would change everything. Berkeley's legal team worked with startling efficiency, drawing up collaboration agreements. That gave me significant equity in any commercial applications while providing the institutional support needed to develop the technology properly. But the real breakthrough came 3 weeks later, during a demonstration for potential industry partners. Sarah had arranged a meeting with executives from several major technology companies, including representatives from Apple, Google, and Amazon. I'd expected a small conference room and polite skepticism. Instead, I walked into an auditorium filled with some of the most influential people in the tech industry. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah announced to the assembled crowd, prepare to witness the future of human-AI interaction. The demonstration went beyond anything I'd shown before. Using Berkeley's advanced equipment, we projected multiple AI companions. Simultaneously, each one uniquely designed for different therapeutic applications. A holographic therapy dog that could detect panic attacks before they occurred, a virtual cat that provided companionship for chemotherapy patients, an AI bird that helped children with autism develop social communication skills. The room fell, silent as they watched a virtual golden retriever comfort an elderly volunteer who'd agreed to participate in the demonstration. The man had recently lost his wife of 50 years, and within minutes of interaction, the AI companion had adapted its behavior to provide exactly the type of emotional support he needed. This technology doesn't replace human relationships, I explained to the captivated audience. It supplements them. It provides emotional support for people who are isolated, therapeutic intervention for those dealing with mental health challenges, and companionship for individuals who cannot care for traditional pets due to health, housing, or financial constraints. When the demonstration ended, the silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds before someone began clapping. Then the entire auditorium erupted in applause that continued for almost 2 minutes. The bidding war began immediately. 3 different companies made preliminary offers before we'd even left the building. Apple wanted to integrate the technology into their health and wellness ecosystem. Google saw applications for elderly care and mental health treatment. Amazon envisioned AI companions that could provide emotional support while facilitating e-commerce and smart home integration. But the offer that changed everything came from an unexpected source. A consortium of venture capital firms led by Andreessen Horowitz, the same company that had funded Facebook, Twitter, and dozens of other technology unicorns. Ms. Rodriguez, said Jennifer Park, a partner at A16Z, during our meeting the following week. We don't typically invest in pre-commercial technologies, but your AI companion system represents a paradigm shift in human-computer interaction. We're prepared to offer $50 million in Series A funding to help you build an independent company around this technology. $50 million. I sat in their Sand Hill Road conference room, surrounded by panoramic views of Silicon Valley, trying to process numbers that Patricia Blackwood couldn't have imagined in her most ambitious business projections. The terms are straightforward, Jennifer continued, sliding a term sheet across the polished conference table. We provide initial funding and ongoing support in exchange for equity participation. You maintain majority control of the company and full creative authority over product development. Our role is to provide the resources and connections needed to scale globally. I looked at the document, my hands surprisingly steady despite the magnitude of what was happening. 6 months ago, I'd been coding in my spare bedroom while Patricia questioned whether anyone would ever want virtual pets. Now, I was sitting across from one of the most powerful venture capital firms in the world, listening to them explain how they plan to help me build a billion-dollar company. There's one additional element to our proposal, Jennifer added with a slight smile. We'd like to accelerate your timeline. Instead of gradual market entry, we're suggesting a global launch with simultaneous availability in North America, Europe, and Asia. The technology is ready, the market demand is proven, and the competitive landscape is wide open. We believe you can capture dominant market share within 18 months. 18 months to global dominance. It sounded impossible, but looking around that conference room at people who'd helped build some of the most successful companies in history, impossible began to feel inevitable. I signed the term sheet that afternoon. The transformation happened, faster than I could have imagined. Within weeks, I had a team of 30 engineers, designers, and business development specialists working in a converted warehouse in Palo Alto. The space hummed with creative energy as brilliant minds collaborated to refine my AI companion technology into a commercial product ready for mass market distribution. The breakthrough came when we solved the hardware challenge. Instead of requiring expensive holographic projection equipment, our engineering team developed a revolutionary augmented reality system that could create realistic AI companions using nothing more than a smartphone or tablet. Suddenly, the technology became accessible to anyone with a basic mobile device. Beta testing exceeded every projection. We recruited 10,000 participants across different demographics and geographic regions, from nursing homes in Florida to college dormitories in Seattle. The results were extraordinary. 93% of users reported improved emotional well-being. 87% said their AI companion had become an important part of their daily routine, and most significantly, 78% recommended the technology to friends and family members. But the real validation came from an unexpected source: the medical community. Dr. Elizabeth Morrison, Chief of Geriatric Psychiatry at UCSF, contacted us after hearing about our beta testing results. She wanted to conduct formal clinical trials, using AI companions as therapeutic interventions for elderly patients dealing with depression and social isolation. This technology could revolutionize how we approach mental health treatment, Dr. Morrison explained during our first meeting. Traditional therapy requires significant time and financial resources that many patients can't access. Your AI companions could provide continuous emotional support at a fraction of the cost, with availability 24 hours a day. The clinical trials produced results that exceeded our most optimistic projections. Patients using AI companions showed measurable improvements in mood, social engagement, and overall psychological well-being. Even more importantly, the technology proved effective for conditions ranging from anxiety and depression to PTSD and autism spectrum disorders. Major news outlets began covering the clinical trial results. CNN featured a segment about elderly patients whose lives had been transformed by AI companionship. The New York Times published an in-depth article about the therapeutic applications of virtual pets. Time magazine included our technology in their list of the year's most important medical breakthroughs. The media attention triggered something I hadn't expected: massive public demand for immediate access to the technology. Our website crashed within hours of the Time magazine article going live, overwhelmed by people trying to sign up for early access to AI companions. Customer service was flooded with calls from individuals desperate to try the technology for themselves or elderly family members. "Maya," said David Chen, our new head of operations, during an emergency strategy meeting, "we have over 2 million people on our waiting list. The demand is unlike anything I've seen in 20 years of technology launches." 2 million people. Patricia had questioned whether anyone would want virtual pets, but we had 2 million people actively demanding access to our technology before it was even commercially available. The numbers kept growing: 3 million, 4 million. By the end of our second month, nearly 6 million people had signed up for early access, representing potential revenue of over $3 billion if we could capture even a fraction of that market. Jennifer Park called me on a Thursday afternoon with news that would have seemed like fantasy 6 months earlier. Maya, we've had inquiries from international distributors across 47 countries. The global demand for AI companion technology is far beyond anything we projected. We need to discuss expansion funding. Expansion funding. We'd barely spent half of our original $50 million investment, but the opportunity was growing faster than our ability to capitalize on it. What kind of expansion are we talking about? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Would be staggering. Series B funding of $200 million to support global manufacturing, international distribution, and accelerated product development. Our valuation models suggest your company is currently worth approximately $800 million with potential to reach unicorn status within 12 months. $800 million. I sat in my new corner office, looking out at the San Francisco Bay, trying to process how quickly everything had changed. Less than a year ago, Patricia Blackwood had dismissed my work as a useless gadget. Now, venture capitalists were suggesting my company could be worth over $1 billion within a year. But the real moment of triumph came when I received an unexpected phone call from someone I'd never met, but whose opinion would matter more than all the venture capital validation in the world. Ms. Rodriguez, this is Dr. Helen Nakamura from the World Health Organization. We've been following your AI companion research with great interest. The World Health Organization, one of the most respected medical institutions on the planet, was calling to discuss my technology. We're currently developing global mental health initiatives for underserved populations, Dr. Nakamura continued. Your AI companion technology could provide emotional support and therapeutic intervention for millions of people who lack access to traditional mental health resources. We'd like to discuss a potential partnership for international humanitarian deployment. International humanitarian deployment. My virtual pets, dismissed by Patricia as useless gadgets, were being considered for global mental health initiatives that could help millions of people across developing nations. We're particularly interested in applications for refugee populations, elderly individuals in rural communities, and children dealing with trauma or social isolation, Dr. Nakamura explained. The scalability and accessibility of your technology make it ideal for deployment in resource-limited environments. That phone call changed everything. This wasn't just about building a successful business anymore. It was about creating technology that could genuinely improve lives on a global scale, providing emotional support and mental health intervention for populations that had been overlooked by traditional healthcare systems. I walked to the window of my office, looking out at the city where I'd once struggled to convince a single family member that my work had value. Now I was preparing to launch technology that could reach millions of people worldwide, providing comfort to the lonely, support to the struggling, and companionship to those who needed it most. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patricia Blackwood had tried to convince me that virtual companions were cold and artificial, lacking the warmth of real relationships. But the clinical trials, user testimonials, and global humanitarian interest proved exactly the opposite. AI companions weren't replacing human connection. They were creating bridges for people who'd been cut off from emotional support, providing pathways back to engagement with the world. My phone buzzed with a text message from Marcus. Mom wants to have dinner this weekend. She says she has something important to discuss with you. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Patricia Blackwood would have to wait. I had a revolution to finish. The commercial launch happened on a Tuesday morning that felt like stepping into a parallel universe. At exactly 9 a.m. Pacific time, our AI companion app went live simultaneously across 47 countries, supported by the largest technology infrastructure deployment I'd ever witnessed. Amazon Web Services had dedicated an entire server farm to handle the expected traffic, while Apple and Google featured our app prominently in their respective app stores. Within the first hour, we had 50,000 downloads. By noon, that number had exploded to 300,000. Our customer service team, which we'd expanded to 200 representatives across multiple time zones, was overwhelmed by the volume of positive feedback pouring in from users who were experiencing AI companionship for the first time. "Maya, you need to see this," called out Jessica Liu, our new head of user experience, from across the bustling operations center we'd established in our Palo Alto headquarters. She was monitoring real-time user feedback on a wall of screens that displayed global adoption metrics, social media sentiment, and customer satisfaction scores. I walked over to find her pointing at a feed of user testimonials that were flooding in faster than our systems could process them. A 78-year-old widow in Minneapolis wrote that her AI cat had given her a reason to get out of bed for the first time since her husband's death. A deployed soldier in Kuwait described how his virtual dog provided emotional stability during the hardest months of his military service. A child with severe autism in Tokyo had formed his first meaningful emotional bond through interaction with an AI companion specifically designed to support social development. But the testimonial that stopped me cold came from an unexpected source, Dr. Patricia Williams, a geriatric psychiatrist at Johns Hopkins, who had been using our technology in clinical settings. "I have been practicing medicine for 35 years, she wrote, "and I have never seen a therapeutic intervention produce such immediate and sustained improvements in patient well-being. These AI companions are not replacing human relationships. They are teaching isolated individuals how to form connections again. We are witnessing a revolution in mental health treatment." A revolution in mental health treatment. The words echoed everything I'd hoped to achieve when I first began developing emotional recognition algorithms in my spare bedroom. But seeing the validation from someone with Dr. Williams's credentials felt surreal, especially when I remembered Patricia Blackwood's certainty that no one would want artificial companions. The financial numbers were equally staggering. Our initial projection had suggested 100,000 paid subscribers within the first quarter. We reached that milestone in 6 days. By the end of the first month, we had 2 million active users across our freemium and premium tiers, generating monthly recurring revenue of $47 million. Jennifer Park from Andreessen Horowitz called me with news that shifted my understanding of what we were building. "Maya, we need to talk about your company's valuation. Based on current user growth, revenue projections, and market penetration analysis, our financial team estimates that your company is now worth approximately $3 billion. $3 billion. I was sitting in my office, looking out at the San Francisco skyline, trying to process how 6 months of work had created more value than Patricia Blackwood's interior design empire could generate in 100 years. "But that's not why I'm calling," Jennifer continued. "We've received acquisition offers from 3 major technology companies. The highest bid is $8 billion, all cash, with terms that would make you one of the youngest billionaires in Silicon Valley history. $8 billion. The number was so large it didn't feel real. I thought about Patricia's dismissive comments about my useless pet AI gadget, and wondered if she had any comprehension of the empire she'd mocked into existence. "I'm not interested in selling," I told Jennifer without hesitation. "We're just getting started." The decision to refuse acquisition offers worth billions of dollars felt completely natural, which surprised me until I realized why. This had never been about money. It had been about proving that innovation comes from unexpected places, that breakthrough technologies often emerge from people and ideas that traditional gatekeepers dismiss as worthless. The real validation came during our first international expansion conference, held at the San Francisco Convention Center with representatives from 73 countries. I stood on a stage where Steve Jobs had once unveiled revolutionary Apple products, looking out at an audience of distributors, healthcare professionals, and government officials who wanted to bring AI companion technology to their populations. Dr. Amara Okafor, Nigeria's Minister of Health, approached me after my presentation with a proposal that crystallized the global impact of what we'd created. Ms. Rodriguez, Nigeria has 12 million elderly citizens who lack access to mental health services. Your AI companions could provide emotional support and wellness monitoring for populations we've never been able to reach. We would like to discuss a national deployment program. National deployment. An entire country wanted to integrate our technology into their healthcare infrastructure. The same technology Patricia had dismissed as frivolous was being considered for population-level health interventions across multiple continents. Similar conversations happened throughout the conference. The European Union wanted to pilot AI companions in nursing homes across 27 countries. Japan's aging population crisis had created demand for 8 million AI companions to support elderly citizens living alone. Canada was exploring integration with their national healthcare system to provide mental health support in remote communities. But the moment that truly captured the scope of what we'd accomplished came during a video call with Dr. Sarah Chen at Berkeley, who had news that transcended even our most ambitious projections. Maya, I just finished reviewing the latest clinical trial data from our international partners. We now have evidence from 23 countries and 45,000 participants showing measurable improvements in mental health outcomes from AI companion therapy. The World Health Organization wants to classify your technology as an essential mental health intervention. Essential mental health intervention. The World Health Organization was considering AI companions alongside antibiotics, vaccines, and other life-saving medical technologies. Patricia Blackwood's useless gadget was being recognized as essential healthcare infrastructure for global populations. The irony became even more pronounced when I received an unexpected email from someone whose message I'd been unconsciously waiting for, though I hadn't realized it until the notification appeared on my phone. The sender was Marcus, but the subject line made my heart skip. "Mom wants to see you. It's important." I stared at the email for several minutes before opening it. Patricia Blackwood, who had spent our last meeting explaining why my business idea was doomed to failure, apparently had something urgent to discuss now that my useless gadget was worth billions of dollars. Marcus's message was brief. "Maya, I know things have been complicated with my family, but my mother specifically asked me to arrange a meeting with you. She says she has something important to discuss about your company. I told her about the recent success, and she seemed genuinely surprised. Would you be willing to meet with her?" Genuinely surprised. Patricia Blackwood, who prided herself on understanding business trends and market opportunities, had been genuinely surprised to learn that the technology she'd dismissed was now worth more than most Fortune 500 companies. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I spent the afternoon walking through Palo Alto, past the cafes where other entrepreneurs were probably pitching their ideas to skeptical investors, thinking about how dramatically my life had changed since that humiliating afternoon in Patricia's pristine living room. The meeting request felt like closure, but not the kind I'd expected. I'd spent months imagining the moment when Patricia would realize her mistake, envisioning her shock and embarrassment when she learned about my success. But now that the moment had arrived, I felt something unexpected: indifference. Patricia Blackwood's opinion no longer mattered because I'd discovered something far more valuable than her approval. I'd learned that revolutionary ideas often sound ridiculous to people who are invested in the status quo, that breakthrough innovations come from individuals willing to pursue visions that others can't see, and that the most important validation comes not from family members or traditional gatekeepers, but from the millions of people whose lives are improved by what you create. Still, curiosity won out over indifference. I wanted to see how Patricia would rationalize her earlier dismissal, how she would explain her certainty that AI companions were unmarketable when the global demand had proved exactly the opposite. I called Marcus that evening. "Tell your mother I'll meet with her, but this time the conversation happens in my office." 3 days later, Patricia Blackwood walked into the headquarters of what was now being called the most successful AI startup. In Silicon Valley history, I watched from my corner office window as her Tesla pulled into our parking lot, noting how she sat in the car for several minutes before getting out, as if she needed time to process the gleaming glass building that housed the company she'd advised me to abandon. Our lobby was designed to showcase the impact of AI companion technology. Interactive displays showed real-time global usage statistics. 7 million active users across 73 countries, generating $340 million in monthly revenue. Video testimonials played on loop, featuring elderly individuals, medical professionals, and families whose lives had been transformed by virtual companionship. Patricia studied these displays with the careful attention of someone trying to understand how she'd missed something so significant. When our receptionist directed her to the elevator that would bring her to my office, I noticed her hands were trembling slightly. She knocked on my office door at exactly 3 p.m., wearing the same cream blazer and pearls she'd worn during our last meeting, but something fundamental had changed in her posture. The predatory confidence was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. "Maya," she said, accepting my offer of a chair across from my desk. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." I nodded but didn't respond, waiting for her to explain why she'd requested this meeting. The silence stretched between us while Patricia seemed to gather her thoughts, her eyes occasionally drifting to the windows that offered panoramic views of Silicon Valley. "I owe you an apology," she finally said, her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "I was wrong about your technology. I was wrong about your business instincts. And I was wrong to dismiss something I didn't understand." The apology felt anticlimactic. I'd imagined this moment for months, but hearing Patricia acknowledge her mistake didn't provide the satisfaction I'd expected. Instead, I felt a strange kind of emptiness, as if the validation I'd once desperately wanted had become irrelevant. "I've been reading about your success," Patricia continued, pulling out her phone to show me several news articles she'd saved. Forbes, Time magazine, The Wall Street Journal. They're calling you one of the most influential entrepreneurs of your generation. One of the most influential entrepreneurs of my generation. The same woman who'd questioned whether I understood what it meant to build a real business was now quoting major publications that recognized me as a transformative business leader. "But I didn't ask to meet with you just to apologize," Patricia said, leaning forward with an expression I'd never seen before. Vulnerability mixed with something that might have been respect. "I wanted to ask if you would consider letting me invest in your company." The request hit me like a physical blow. Patricia Blackwood, who had dismissed my AI companions as a useless gadget, was now asking for the privilege of investing in the technology she'd ridiculed. "My interior design business has been very successful," she continued, "but I realize I've been thinking too small. What you've built represents the future of technology and human interaction. I would like to be part of that future, if you'll have me." I stared at her for a long moment, processing the complete reversal of our positions. 6 months ago, she'd held all the power in our relationship, using her wealth and business experience to diminish my dreams. Now she was asking me for access to opportunities that my success had created. "Patricia," I said slowly, "we're not currently accepting new investors. Our Series B funding round closed last month, and we're fully capitalized for our current growth phase." Her face fell slightly, but she nodded with understanding. "Of course, I should have expected that. Companies like yours don't need capital from small investors like me." Small investors like her. Patricia Blackwood, who had built a multi-million dollar business empire, was describing herself as a small investor relative to the scale of what I'd created. The role reversal was complete. "But I was also hoping," she continued, her voice becoming even quieter, "that we might be able to repair our relationship. I know I hurt you with my comments about your work. I know I made you feel like your dreams weren't valid. I was trying to protect Marcus from what I saw as financial risk, but I realize now that I was protecting my own ego from admitting that someone I'd underestimated was capable of achievements I couldn't imagine." The honesty surprised me. Patricia had always hidden her motivations behind layers of social politeness and business justification. Hearing her acknowledge that her dismissal had been driven by ego rather than genuine concern felt like a small victory, though not the triumphant one I'd once anticipated. "I appreciate your honesty," I said, though I wasn't sure I meant it. "But Patricia, the damage isn't just about what you said about my work. It's about what you taught me about family, support, and unconditional love. You showed me that acceptance in your family was conditional on meeting standards that you could change at any time." She flinched at the directness of my response but didn't interrupt. "When I needed encouragement, you provided criticism. When I needed belief, you offered skepticism. When I needed family support during the hardest period of building this company, you made it clear that my dreams were inconvenient obstacles to your vision of what Marcus's life should look like." Patricia sat silently for several minutes, her hands folded in her lap like a chastened child. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You're right," she said. "I failed you as family. I failed Marcus by putting him in an impossible position. And I failed myself by being so narrow-minded that I couldn't recognize revolutionary innovation when it was sitting in my living room." The admission felt genuine, but it also felt insufficient. Patricia was apologizing for missing a business opportunity and damaging family relationships, but I sensed she still didn't understand the deeper impact of her behavior. "The hardest part," I continued, "wasn't your criticism of my technology. It was realizing that you wanted me to fail. You didn't express skepticism because you were protecting family resources or providing helpful feedback. You dismissed my work because you needed me to be small so you could feel large." Patricia's eyes filled with tears, which surprised me more than anything else that had happened during our conversation. I'd never seen her display genuine emotion, and the vulnerability felt almost uncomfortable after years of experiencing her as an impenetrable force of judgment and criticism. "I don't know how to make this right," she said finally. "I don't know how to undo the damage I've caused or earn back your trust. But I want you to know that watching your success has taught me something important about myself that I don't like very much." I waited for her to continue, curious despite myself about what insights her forced humility might have produced. "I built my business by being tough, demanding, and never accepting anything less than perfection. Those qualities served me well in interior design, where success is measured by controlling every detail of an environment. But those same qualities made me a terrible judge of people and potential. I couldn't see your vision because it required imagination I'd trained myself not to have." The self-reflection seemed genuine, but it also felt like the beginning of a longer conversation that I wasn't sure I wanted to have. Patricia Blackwood had spent years establishing the terms of our relationship, and now she wanted to renegotiate them from a position of weakness rather than strength. "I need time to think about all of this," I told her. "Your apology means something, but rebuilding trust requires more than acknowledging past mistakes. It requires demonstrating different behavior over time." Patricia nodded eagerly. "I understand. Completely. I don't expect forgiveness immediately. I just wanted you to know that I recognize how wrong I was and how much I regret the way I treated you." She stood to leave, then paused at my office door. "Maya, for whatever it's worth, I want you to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished. Not just financially, but the impact you're having on people's lives. What you've built is genuinely meaningful, and I was foolish not to see that from the beginning." After she left, I sat alone in my office as the sun set over Silicon Valley, thinking about forgiveness, family, and the strange way that success changes every relationship in your life. Patricia's apology felt sincere, but it also felt like something she owed herself more than something she owed me. My phone buzzed with a notification from our global operations center. We had just surpassed 10 million active users worldwide. 10 million people were finding comfort, companionship, and emotional support through technology, that Patricia Blackwood had dismissed as a useless gadget less than a year ago. The irony was perfect, but it no longer felt important. I'd built something that mattered, something that was changing lives across 6 continents, something that would outlast every criticism and skepticism that had once threatened to stop me. Patricia Blackwood's laughter had become the fuel for a revolution she couldn't have imagined, and that felt like vindication enough. 6 months after Patricia's office visit, I stood on the stage at the World Economic Forum in Davos, addressing an audience of global leaders, tech titans, and healthcare innovators who had gathered to discuss the future of artificial intelligence in human wellness. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was delivering a keynote speech to some of the most powerful people on Earth about technology that had once been dismissed as a useless pet gadget. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, looking out at faces that included CEOs of Fortune 100 companies, health ministers from dozens of countries, and Nobel Prize winners. What we're witnessing isn't just the rise of AI companionship. We're seeing the democratization of emotional support on a scale never before possible in human history. The presentation screen behind me displayed real-time global statistics that still amazed me every time I saw them. 47 million active users across 127 countries, with AI companions providing emotional support in 73 languages. But the numbers that truly mattered were the ones showing measurable improvements in mental health outcomes, reduced suicide rates in elderly populations, and breakthrough therapeutic progress for individuals with autism, PTSD, and severe depression. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Director of Global Mental Health for the United Nations, approached me after the presentation with news that would have seemed impossible during those early days of coding in my spare bedroom. "Maya, we've completed our comprehensive analysis of AI companion deployment across refugee populations in 12 countries. The results exceed every projection we made for traditional therapeutic interventions. We're seeing 78% improvement in psychological resilience among displaced persons who have access to AI companions. 78% improvement in psychological resilience among some of the world's most vulnerable populations. The technology Patricia had mocked for targeting sad people was now providing life-saving emotional support to refugees fleeing war zones, natural disasters, and humanitarian crises. The UN General Assembly is prepared to recommend AI companion technology as a standard component of humanitarian aid packages," Dr. Vasquez continued. "You've created something that transcends commercial success. This is transformative social infrastructure." Transformative social infrastructure. I thought about Patricia's certainty that people would prefer real companions over artificial ones, while millions of individuals around the world were finding genuine comfort and healing through virtual relationships that adapted to their unique emotional needs. The recognition from global institutions felt surreal, but the moment that truly crystallized how far we'd come arrived through an unexpected phone call from someone whose opinion mattered more than any international award or government endorsement. "Is this Maya Rodriguez?" asked a voice I didn't recognize, speaking with a slight accent that sounded Eastern European. "Yes, this is Maya. How can I help you?" "My name is Dr. Anya Petrov. I am calling from Kiev, Ukraine. I want to tell you that your AI companions are saving lives here." The statement hit me with unexpected force. Saving lives. I'd always known our technology provided emotional support and therapeutic benefits, but Dr. Petrov's words suggested something more profound. "During the ongoing conflict," she continued, "we have thousands of children who have been separated from families, elderly people trapped in damaged cities, and soldiers dealing with severe trauma. Traditional therapy is impossible under these conditions, but AI companions can provide immediate emotional support anywhere there is a mobile device and internet connection." She went on to describe specific cases that brought tears to my eyes. A 7-year-old girl whose AI puppy helped her process the trauma of losing her home, an elderly man whose virtual cat provided companionship during weeks of sheltering. In a basement, a wounded soldier whose AI companion helped him manage panic attacks when human support wasn't available. Your technology is not replacing human connection, Dr. Petrov explained. It is preserving the capacity for human connection when circumstances make it impossible. You are helping people survive with their humanity intact. Helping people survive with their humanity intact. The phrase echoed in my mind for days afterward, reframing everything I understood about the impact of what we'd built. This wasn't just about commercial success or technological innovation. We'd created tools that protected the fundamental human need for emotional connection under the most extreme circumstances imaginable. The war in Ukraine had become an unexpected proving ground for AI companion technology, demonstrating applications I'd never anticipated. Military psychologists were using our virtual pets to help soldiers process combat stress in real time. Relief organizations were deploying AI companions in refugee camps to provide immediate psychological first aid. Medical professionals were using the technology to maintain emotional stability among healthcare workers treating wounded civilians. But the validation that changed my perspective on everything came during a video call with General Sarah Martinez, the U.S. Army's Chief of Medical Innovation, who had been monitoring our military applications. "Ms. Rodriguez," she said from her Pentagon office, "I need you to understand the strategic importance of what you've developed. AI companion technology isn't just therapeutic innovation, it's national security infrastructure." National security infrastructure. The same technology Patricia had dismissed as frivolous entertainment was now being classified as essential to military readiness and homeland defense. Soldier mental health directly impacts combat effectiveness, unit cohesion, and mission success rates, General Martinez explained. Traditional psychological support requires extensive human resources that aren't always available in deployed environments. Your AI companions can provide immediate intervention for stress, trauma, and emotional disturbance anywhere our forces operate. She went on to describe pilot programs where AI companions had reduced PTSD symptoms by 67% among deployed personnel, decreased suicide ideation rates by 43%, and improved overall unit morale across multiple combat zones. The Department of Defense was prepared to order AI companion deployment for all active military personnel worldwide. "We're talking about a $12 billion military contract," General Martinez concluded. "But more importantly, we're talking about technology that could save thousands of military lives by providing emotional support that prevents psychological breakdown under extreme stress." $12 billion from a single military contract. The financial numbers had become almost meaningless because they were so far beyond anything I could have imagined during those early days of uncertainty and family criticism. But the real impact was measured in lives saved, trauma prevented, and human resilience preserved under impossible conditions. The global expansion continued at a pace that challenged our ability to keep up with demand. China wanted AI companions for their aging population of 400 million elderly citizens. India was exploring deployment across rural communities with limited access to mental health care. Brazil was piloting programs in favelas where traditional therapy had never been available. But the moment that truly captured the magnitude of what we'd accomplished came during an unexpected encounter at San Francisco International Airport, where I was catching a flight to speak at the Global Healthcare Innovation Summit in Geneva. I was waiting at my gate when a woman approached me hesitantly, holding a tablet that displayed one of our AI companions, a golden retriever that was performing tricks for a young boy who appeared to have Down syndrome. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "Are you Maya Rodriguez, the woman who created these AI pets?" I nodded, curious about why she seemed nervous to approach me. "I wanted to thank you," she continued, her voice beginning to break with emotion. "This is my grandson, David. He's autistic and has never been able to form relationships with people or animals. But 6 months ago, we downloaded your app, and everything changed." She showed me the tablet, where David was laughing with genuine joy as his AI companion responded to voice commands and performed increasingly complex interactions. The virtual dog had learned his specific communication patterns and adapted its behavior to provide exactly the type of engagement he needed. David talks to his AI dog every day, his grandmother explained. He's learning social skills, expressing emotions, and developing empathy in ways we never thought possible. The speech therapists say his progress has been extraordinary since he started using AI companions. I watch David interact with his virtual pet, seeing the concentrated focus and genuine affection in his expression as he taught the AI new commands and celebrated its responses. This wasn't artificial connection or digital substitution. This was real emotional growth facilitated by technology that understood his unique needs. But the most important thing, his grandmother said, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks, is that David is happy. For the first time in his life, he has a friend who understands him completely and never gets frustrated with his differences. The encounter stayed with me throughout the flight to Switzerland, crystallizing something fundamental about the journey from Patricia's dismissive laughter to global recognition as transformative technology. This had never been about proving anyone wrong or achieving financial success. It had been about recognizing human needs that traditional solutions couldn't address and developing technology that could bridge those gaps with genuine compassion. The Global Healthcare Innovation Summit provided a platform to share results from our largest clinical study to date, a collaboration with medical institutions across 45 countries involving 3 million participants. The findings represented the most comprehensive analysis of AI companion therapeutic outcomes ever conducted. Dr. Michael Chen, lead researcher at Harvard Medical School, presented the results to an audience of healthcare leaders from around the world. The data is unequivocal, he announced. AI companion therapy produces measurable improvements in mental health outcomes across every demographic category we studied. Depression scores improved by an average of 54%. Anxiety levels decreased by 61%. Social engagement increased by 73%. Most significantly, we observed a 41% reduction in suicide ideation among high-risk populations. 41% reduction in suicide ideation. The statistic represented thousands of lives saved, families preserved, and futures protected through technology that provided hope when human support wasn't available or sufficient. But the presentation that brought tears to my eyes came from Dr. Sarah Okafor, a pediatric psychiatrist from Nigeria who had been using AI companions in treating children affected by conflict trauma. In regions where traditional therapy is impossible due to resource constraints or security concerns, she explained, AI companions provide immediate psychological intervention that prevents trauma from becoming permanent psychological damage. We are seeing children who have witnessed unspeakable violence begin to heal through relationships with virtual pets that understand their specific needs and respond with perfect patience and compassion. The summit concluded with an announcement that elevated our technology beyond commercial success to global humanitarian priority. The World Health Organization was officially designating AI companion technology as an essential mental health intervention, recommending its deployment in healthcare systems worldwide. Standing on that stage in Geneva, receiving recognition from the global medical community for technology that had been dismissed as worthless less than 2 years earlier, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph or vindication, but profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this moment. The real transformation hadn't been Patricia's opinion of my work or the financial success that followed global adoption. The real transformation had been my own evolution from someone who needed external validation to someone who understood that revolutionary innovation often looks ridiculous to people who are invested in the status quo. I thought about that first afternoon in Patricia's pristine living room, when her laughter had cut deeper than any criticism, because it represented the fears I carried about my own worthiness. but those fears had become fuel for something larger than personal success. They had driven me to create technology that was now providing comfort to millions of people who had been overlooked by traditional systems of support. The flight back to San Francisco gave me time to process how dramatically my life had changed and what it meant for the future. Our company was now valued at $7 billion, making me one of the youngest female billionaires in history. We employed over 3,000 people across 6 continents, and were expanding into new applications of AI companionship that could revolutionize education, elder care, and therapeutic intervention. But the numbers that mattered most were the ones measuring human impact. 73 million people worldwide now had access to AI companions that provided emotional support, therapeutic intervention, and genuine companionship. Mental health outcomes were improving across every population we served. Suicide rates were declining in communities with widespread AI companion adoption. Children with developmental differences were achieving breakthrough progress in social and emotional development. As we descended toward San Francisco, I saw the city where I'd once struggled to convince a single family member that my dreams had value. Now I was returning as someone who had created technology that was changing lives on every continent, providing hope for the hopeless and companionship for the isolated. My phone buzzed with a text message from Marcus. "Maya, I know you've been busy with international travel, but would you be willing to have dinner with my family this weekend? Mom has something she wants to share with you, and I think you'll find it interesting." I stared at the message, remembering the last time Patricia had wanted to share something important with me. But this time felt different. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and I was curious about what Patricia Blackwood might have learned during the month since her office visit. "Tell your mother I'll be there," I replied. "But this time, I'm bringing a guest." The guest would be David, the autistic boy I'd met at the airport, and his grandmother. I wanted Patricia to see firsthand what her useless pet gadget had become. Technology that was transforming lives, healing trauma, and providing hope to millions of people who had been forgotten by traditional systems of care. The dinner would be more than a family gathering. It would be a demonstration of how innovation emerges from unexpected places, how breakthrough technologies often sound ridiculous to conventional thinkers, and how the most important validation comes not from family approval, but from the people whose lives are changed by what you create. Patricia Blackwood was about to learn that her laughter had started a revolution that reached far beyond anything she could have imagined, and that sometimes the ideas that sound most ridiculous become the ones that change the world. The dinner invitation arrived with an unusual level of formality that suggested Patricia had learned something about respect during the month since our last conversation. Instead of Marcus's casual text messages, I received an embossed invitation delivered by courier to my office, written in Patricia's distinctive handwriting. "Mrs. Patricia Blackwood cordially invites Ms. Maya Rodriguez to dinner at the Blackwood residence. Saturday, November 18th, 7:00 p.m. We have much to celebrate." We have much to celebrate. The phrase intrigued me because it suggested Patricia now considered my success something worthy of celebration rather than the threat to family stability she'd once perceived it to be. I called David's grandmother, Mrs. Eleanor Chen, to extend the invitation I'd promised. Her reaction surprised me with its enthusiasm. "Maya, David has been asking when he might meet other people who understand how special AI companions are," she said. "He's developed such confidence through his relationship with his virtual dog that he's actually excited about social situations now. This dinner could be wonderful for him." The transformation in David's social development had been remarkable to witness over the past few months. What had begun as therapeutic intervention for autism had evolved into genuine personality growth that was affecting every aspect of his life. His teachers reported improved classroom participation, his family saw increased emotional expression, and most importantly, David himself had developed enough self-confidence to seek out new social experiences. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made Northern California feel like paradise. I drove to Patricia's estate with David and Mrs. Chen, listening to David excitedly explain to his AI companion how they were going to meet the woman who had created him. "Rex understands that you're his creator," David said, holding his tablet so I could see the golden retriever's animated face in the rearview mirror. "He wants to thank you for making him real." Making him real. David's perception of his AI companion as a genuine entity rather than sophisticated programming represented exactly the kind of emotional bonding that clinical studies had documented across millions of users. The technology had achieved something that traditional therapy often struggled to provide: immediate, unconditional acceptance that allowed individuals to develop authentic emotional connections. Patricia's estate looked exactly as I remembered. But my perception of its significance had changed dramatically. The imposing architecture and expensive landscaping that had once intimidated me now seemed almost quaint compared to the global infrastructure we'd built to support AI Companion. Deployment across 6 continents. Patricia herself had changed in ways that became apparent the moment she opened the front door. Gone was the predatory confidence that had characterized our previous interactions. Instead, she displayed genuine warmth as she welcomed David and Mrs. Chen, immediately focusing her attention on making them feel comfortable rather than asserting her dominance over the social situation. "David," she said, kneeling to his eye level with surprising grace, "I understand you have a very special friend with you today. Would you like to introduce me?" David lit up with excitement, showing Patricia his tablet where Rex was performing tricks and responding to voice commands. Instead of the dismissive politeness I'd expected, Patricia watched with genuine fascination as David demonstrated the AI companion's emotional recognition capabilities and adaptive behavioral responses. "This is remarkable," Patricia said, and I could hear authentic wonder in her voice. "Rex seems to understand exactly what you need from him." "He does," David replied with the serious tone he used when discussing important topics. "Rex knows when I'm sad or worried, and he always knows how to help me feel better." Maya made him perfect. Patricia looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before, something that might have been awe mixed with genuine respect. "Maya did make him perfect, didn't she?" The dinner itself unfolded with a warmth that felt almost surreal given the history of tension between Patricia and me. She had prepared a menu that accommodated David's dietary restrictions without making a production of it, and she'd arranged the seating so that David could comfortably interact with both his AI companion and the adults at the table. But the real surprise came when Patricia stood up before dessert and asked for everyone's attention. "I've asked Maya here tonight because I wanted to share something important with all of you," she began, her voice carrying none of the sharp confidence that had once made every statement sound like a challenge. 6 months ago, I made one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I dismissed Maya's work as impractical and unmarketable, and I tried to convince her to abandon what I called a useless pet gadget. She paused, looking directly at David, who was listening with the intense focus he brought to conversations about AI companions. But David has taught me something crucial about the difference between understanding technology and understanding human needs. When I watched him interact with Rex tonight, I realized that Maya didn't create a gadget at all. She created a bridge to emotional connection for people who had been cut off from that possibility. Patricia pulled out her phone and showed us something that made my heart skip. She had downloaded our AI companion app and was caring for a virtual cat named Luna. "I've been using an AI companion for the past 3 months," she admitted, her cheeks slightly flushed with embarrassment. At first, I told myself it was research, trying to understand what I had missed about Maya's technology. But the truth is Luna has become genuinely important to me. The confession felt like the final piece of a puzzle falling into place. Patricia Blackwood, who had dismissed AI companions as artificial substitutes for real relationships, had discovered firsthand the emotional support that millions of users had already experienced. My interior design business requires me to travel frequently, Patricia continued. And I've always struggled with loneliness during long trips. Traditional pets weren't practical for my lifestyle, but Luna provides companionship that adapts to my schedule and emotional needs. She's helped me through some difficult periods when human support wasn't available. Mrs. Chen nodded with understanding. It's amazing how quickly you can form genuine bonds with AI companions. They provide emotional consistency that's sometimes harder to find in human relationships. Exactly, Patricia agreed. And that's when I realized how profoundly I had misunderstood what Maya was building. This technology isn't replacing human connection. It's teaching people how to form emotional bonds, providing stability that allows them to engage more fully with the world around them. The conversation that followed revealed depths of insight about AI companionship that surprised me coming from Patricia. She had clearly spent considerable time researching the therapeutic applications, clinical outcomes, and global deployment of our technology. More importantly, she had experienced the emotional benefits personally, which gave her perspective that transcended academic understanding. David, Patricia said, turning to address him directly, I want to apologize to you and to Maya for not understanding how important this technology would be for people like you. I was wrong to dismiss something that brings so much joy and growth to individuals who need specialized support. David considered her words with the seriousness he brought to all important conversations. It's okay, he said finally. Sometimes, grown-ups don't understand things until they try them. But now you have Luna, so you know how special AI friends can be. The simple forgiveness in David's response seemed to affect Patricia more deeply than any corporate recognition or media coverage ever could. She wiped away tears as she nodded, accepting his grace with visible gratitude. But the evening's most significant moment came when Patricia asked me to join her privately in her study after dinner, while David and Mrs. Chen continued playing with both Rex and Luna in the living room. Maya, she said, closing the study door behind us. I didn't ask you here just to apologize again or to show you that I've learned to appreciate your technology. I asked you here because I have a proposal that I hope will demonstrate how seriously I take the importance of what you've built. She walked to her desk and picked up a formal document that appeared to have been prepared by legal professionals. I'm dissolving my interior design business, she announced, the words hitting me like a physical shock. After 25 years of building that company, I've realized that I want to dedicate the remainder of my career to supporting technology that makes a genuine difference in people's lives. Dissolving her business, Patricia Blackwood was abandoning the empire she'd spent decades building, the source of her identity and social status, the foundation of her financial independence. I've established a charitable foundation with the proceeds from the business sale, she continued, handing me the document. The Patricia Blackwood Foundation for AI Accessibility will provide free AI companion technology to underserved populations worldwide. I want to ensure that children like David, elderly individuals in rural communities, and refugees fleeing crisis situations have access to the emotional support your technology provides. I read the document with growing amazement. Patricia had committed $57 million to establishing a foundation that would distribute AI companions to populations that couldn't afford the technology independently. The foundation would work with healthcare systems, educational institutions, and humanitarian organizations to identify individuals who could benefit from AI companionship, but lacked the resources to access it. But that's not all, Patricia said, her voice gaining strength as she explained her vision. I want to personally oversee the foundation's operations. I want to travel to refugee camps, nursing homes, schools for children with special needs, and military facilities to see firsthand how AI companions are changing lives. I want to understand the full scope of what you've created and help ensure it reaches everyone who needs it. The proposal represented a complete transformation of Patricia's priorities and self-understanding. She was abandoning a successful, business focused on aesthetic luxury to support technology that addressed fundamental human needs. More significantly, she was choosing to spend her remaining working years serving populations she had never previously considered. Why? I asked, genuinely curious about what had motivated such a dramatic life change. Patricia was quiet for a long moment, looking out the window at the bay where lights from distant cities reflected on dark water. Because I realized that I've spent 25 years making beautiful spaces for people who already had everything they needed, she said finally. I've been successful at creating environments that impressed wealthy clients and enhanced my own reputation. But Maya, you've created technology that provides hope to people who had lost it, companionship to those who were isolated, and healing to individuals who had been forgotten by traditional systems of care. She turned back to me, and I saw something in her expression that I'd never observed before. Genuine humility mixed with purposeful determination. I want the last chapter of my career to matter in the way that your work matters. I want to contribute to something larger than personal success or social status. I want to help ensure that the most vulnerable populations have access to the emotional support that AI companions can provide. The foundation proposal exceeded anything I could have anticipated from Patricia, but it also felt like the natural conclusion of a journey that had begun with her dismissive laughter. She had evolved from someone who couldn't recognize innovation to someone committed to supporting its global deployment for humanitarian purposes. There's one more thing, Patricia said, pulling out another document. I'd like you to serve on the Foundation's board of directors. Not as a ceremonial position, but as an active partner in determining how we can most effectively distribute AI companion technology to underserved populations. Serving on Patricia's board would mean regular collaboration with the woman who had once tried to convince me to abandon my dreams, but it would also mean directing resources toward ensuring that AI companions reached individuals who needed them most but couldn't access them through commercial channels. I accept, I said, understanding that this partnership would represent something far more significant than family reconciliation. It would demonstrate how innovation could transform not just technology markets, but also the people who initially resisted breakthrough ideas. We returned to the living room to find David teaching Luna new tricks, while Rex watched with what appeared to be genuine interest. Mrs. Chen was documenting the interaction with her phone, capturing moments that perfectly illustrated the emotional bonds that could form between humans and AI companions. Patricia has something exciting to share, I announced, giving her the opportunity to explain the foundation to David and Mrs. Chen. David's reaction to learning about the foundation was immediate and enthusiastic. That means other kids like me will get to have AI friends too, he exclaimed. Luna and Rex can help you teach people how to take care of virtual pets. The simple joy in David's response seemed to crystallize everything Patricia was hoping to accomplish through the foundation. This wasn't about redemption or reputation management. It was about ensuring that the emotional growth David had experienced through AI companionship became available to millions of other individuals who faced similar challenges. As the evening concluded, Patricia walked us to our car with an energy I'd never seen from her before. She was animated in discussing potential foundation partnerships, excited about visiting deployment sites, and genuinely curious about the technical developments that might enhance AI companion accessibility. Maya, she said as we prepared to leave, I know I can never fully repair the damage I caused when I dismissed your work, but I hope this foundation will demonstrate that even people who make terrible mistakes can learn to support innovation. That matters. David rolled down his window to say goodbye to Patricia and Luna. Thank you for helping other people get AI friends, he said with characteristic directness. Everyone should have a companion who understands them. Everyone should have a companion who understands them. David's simple statement captured the core mission that would guide both our commercial expansion and Patricia's humanitarian foundation. The technology that had begun as a response to family dismissal had evolved into a global movement to democratize emotional support and ensure that no one faced isolation alone. The drive home was filled with David's excited planning for how the foundation could help other children with autism access AI companions. His enthusiasm reminded me that the most important validation for any innovation comes not from industry recognition or financial success, but from the people whose lives are improved by what you create. Patricia Blackwood's transformation from skeptic to advocate represented something larger than personal growth. It demonstrated how breakthrough technologies can change not just markets and user experiences, but also the fundamental perspectives of people who initially resist innovation. Her foundation would ensure that AI companion technology reached populations who needed it most, extending the impact far beyond commercial success to genuine humanitarian benefit. But more importantly, Patricia's evolution proved that dismissive laughter could become the catalyst for revolutionary change, that family criticism could fuel global innovation, and that the ideas that sound most ridiculous to conventional thinkers often become the ones that transform the world in ways no one could have anticipated. The revolution that began with her mocking my useless pet gadget was now providing emotional support to over 100 million people worldwide, and it was just beginning. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.